the John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. John Anik and Kenny Florian.
I fucking love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John Anik and Kenny Florian.
And we are in the same Pacific time zone today. I missed the friendly confines of my Boca Raton studio. I apologize for the darkness here if you're watching on video, but it is great to have you with us as we kick off a pay-per-view weekend style. It's Monday, July the 6th. The year is 2020. Shitty fucking year overall. It's episode 257 of the Anik and Florian podcast. What's up, my man?
What's going on, dude? How is Vegas, and when do you leave to Fight Island?
Breaking news, my COVID-19 test is negative. I got the results literally 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
So broadcast partners are clean as well. So we will be boarding the charter tonight at 8 p.m. Pacific, flying through the night to Abu Dhabi, and then a 48-hour quarantine once I get there. So I'm in a 36-hour quarantine right here at this hotel in Vegas, but there's a little flexibility. I go see Paul Felder with a mask on and nobody's bothering me. But in Abu Dhabi, case of water in every room, everything gets delivered to the room. Even if you are an athlete cutting weight, 48 hours, mandatory quarantine in your room.
That's crazy. I was thinking about that, how I would deal with that if I was a fighter. I'd be going crazy. Not that I'm out and about, like walking around like a madman, but, you already have all this pent-up energy. You want to get out and get a workout in, and you got to do it all in your probably smelly room at that point, working out. That's going to be interesting, man, for a lot of the fighters in there having to be cooped up. It's an interesting element.
Right. A fighter I am not, right? So you're not going to hear me levying many commentator complaints when these athletes are trying to navigate a training situation 4 days before a fight. I'm sure maybe there's some workout rooms or some things that are being done for the athletes, but I can tell you, like, Jared Gordon is competing on July 15th, and we flew together from Miami, and he's here right now, and presumably once he gets his negative test, at least he'll have the use of the parking lot. So, like, I can go for a run today in the hotel parking lot. So I can go do 50 laps, but I can't run off the premises. It's just a crazy variable for, I think, a lot of these fighters, especially the American fighters who didn't get a chance to compete in Vegas, who are now going to Fight Island. It's a lot. There's no doubt about it. But I'm excited to go. There's always a little anxiety making sure you get that COVID-19 test back, but it's negative. So I'm going, and a lot for us to get to today. We got 7 predictions from Ken-Flo and Ian Parker in the main event challenge for UFC 251. We have a new main event. It's been a crazy week. Let's get to headlines.
Headlines.
It's time for headlines.
I have some very urgent and important breaking news.
Headlines.
On the John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
So we do dedicate today's episode of the Anik and Florian podcast to the late Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, who passed away over the last week due to complications stemming from COVID-19. And you see the fight game coming out with supporting words and honorary tributes, and we're going to talk about it more with Ray Longo. But Kenny, this man just had such an indelible impact on so many young wrestlers and athletes, and certainly Khabib, every chance he had a microphone, he was putting his father over and talking about how much of a role he played in his athletic and overall success as a human being. And I'm so glad that they had that moment together at UFC 242 in Abu Dhabi, because there were visa issues that prevented Abdulmanap from coming to a lot of Khabib's fights in the U.S. And, I'm glad they had that moment. But when you have a father-son bond as powerful as they do, and I know you and Dr. Florian are very close as well, this is like your best friend. This is you're effectively walking into a new life after you lose your dad. And I know Khabib is probably having a really hard couple weeks right now.
I can't even imagine. And I wonder how this is going to affect him moving forward. That was not only his father, but also his main coach, really. That's the guy that has guided him from the very beginning. Saying goodbye to that man must be extremely difficult, and it's going to take a lot of time. This isn't a thing that's going to, happen overnight. I imagine that this will probably push Khabib's next fight back quite a ways. I mean, I'd be surprised if he fights even within the next year, honestly. That is a lot to deal with, man. I can't even imagine. My heart goes out to their family. But Abdulmanap has produced perhaps, the greatest fighter that we've seen in a very long time. You look at what he's done and the way that he's done it. That is something that, he leaves his legacy here in his son Habib. And not only that, he has mentored and coached, hundreds and perhaps thousands of wrestlers and Sambo practitioners over the years. So I think that whole area of Dagestan is really hurting.
Yeah. There are some powerful posts out there from Daniel Cormier and Ali Abdelaziz with some really thoughtful words that sort of encapsulate the man and all he meant to so many people. So I would encourage you to check that out. And I know Ray Longo reached out to me before the show because he wants to talk about the late, great Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov. So Khabib, just know that the whole MMA world, the two of us included, are certainly thinking about you here during what is obviously a busy week for the MMA leader. And that brings us to UFC 251, Usman versus Burns. Oh, wait! UFC 251, Usman versus Masvidal.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is not an ideal circumstance for Jorge Masvidal, but you have to imagine he has prepared already, at least in his mind, for this fight. He was getting ready for this fight. I know he had brought in some high-level wrestlers to get ready a few months ago. I don't know if he's stayed in shape and all those things, but you have the weight cut. You have this whole COVID-19 testing. You have that long plane ride. You have the quarantine on 48 hours notice. If he is able to pull this off against who I believe is perhaps the toughest stylistic matchup for him in the division, I mean, he's already a legend, but this would just add to that legendary status for sure.
And I would have no choice at that point but to get the game bred tattoo, essentially.
Right.
I mean, I've already had a conversation with George Masvidal about the game bred tattoo, so I've already agreed to get it regardless of the outcome of this fight. But perhaps if he does win, that'll expedite the game bred tattoo for me. We'll see. Maybe we'll make it official leading up to the fight. But a lot is being made of the Masvidal side of things, Ken-Flo, right? Everything that he has to go over in terms of hurdles and obstacles to get to fight night, to compete against this guy, Kamaru Usman, who's fucking 11-0 in the UFC, who had barely lost a round in the UFC before he fought Colby Covington last December. But how about the Kamaru Usman side of this, right? Leaves his training camp, which he could now go back to in theory. He could get Henry Hoof to come corner him now, I guess, if he wanted to. But what type of fight do you think that Usman was preparing for? Because I believe that he was preparing for a kickboxing match. Certainly it stands to reason that Burns was going to be attempting takedowns more than Masvidal would. But, I mean, do you think that Usman, knowing the guy upstairs that he is, would have taken this fight, which is on short notice for him, if he didn't think the preparation was if not optimal, at least pretty damn good?
Yeah, listen, I think it's a much different fight for him. I think it's an easier fight for him. It's crazy because you look at the way Masvidal matches up against Burns. That's a great matchup for him. I think Burns matches up really well against Usman, but then Usman matches up really well against Masvidal. So the way you look at the way this whole thing has played out is absolutely crazy. But I think for Usman, I think this is pretty much a game plan that he has followed throughout his career. I think that he's not going to try to do a kickboxing match with someone like a Masvidal. I think he should not do that anyway. I think that's exactly right what you said. He was preparing for that kind of fight against someone like Gilbert Burns. But as far as game planning, this is something he's been doing for the majority of his career. Use his strikes to get to the clinch, lean on your opponent, get him up against the cage, take him down, beat him up, rinse, wash, repeat. And that's what he needs to do against Masvidal here. So I think in a lot of ways, it's why he was so excited to take on someone like a Jorge Masvidal. You have this huge name. This guy's got a lot of momentum behind him. He's a smaller welterweight, and he's a guy that I think he probably has beaten in his mind, or at least at some portion of his career already. So I think Usman's going to head into this very confident. Now, you kind of talked about some of the hiccups that he had for this camp. He did have to go to Colorado. It's a totally different camp. That could definitely throw a wrench in his plans as well. Having different people in your corner, having different preparations can throw a fighter off as well. So I'm curious to see how that affects Usman in this one.
So I just got a text. The latest odds at the Superbook here in Las Vegas. Kamaru Usman has swelled to a minus 300 betting favorite. So we'll have more on that in the main event challenge. But I think that dovetails with a lot of what you're saying in terms of the matchup, that it does appear to be a favorable one for Kamaru Usman. But Jorge Masvidal is sort of the consummate wild card for me. I just think he performs when the lights are at their brightest. And I also think when it comes to this resurrection and this Masvidal 2.0, there has been a stylistic change, Kenny, in terms of the aggression and the way he is approaching these fights, right? And obviously it's led to a lot of big paydays and him becoming the superstar that a lot of us maybe thought he could become that he never became. But obviously, you got to be a little bit more measured, I would think, against someone like Kamaru. I mean, doesn't the first strategy have to be, like, you can't let him near your leg, right? I mean, you need this to be contested on the feet, do you not?
Yes, I would say with everything that Masvidal is dealing with and the fact that I believe, it's his preparation that has allowed him to become successful. Everything seems to be coming together at the right time for him. But I would also add it's his propensity for not giving a shit, which has allowed him to also be successful and to get all these finishes that he's been getting. So I think he definitely needs to weigh a little bit more heavily on not giving a shit in this fight against Usman and just fucking go for it. He's taking this fight on 7 days notice. If he becomes too measured in waiting for the takedown and trying to make this a 5-round fight, I think it sets him up for disaster. I think that's what has plagued Masvidal for a majority of his career, is when he tries to think way too much and he tries to calculate too much. I know I've suffered from that a little bit in my career. You have to be able to balance that savagery with the mental approach as well. And I think in this case, I think for me, he's got to lean a little bit more towards the savage side here against Usman, because Usman's going to come in here very consistent, doing what he normally does. It's going to be something crazy on the part of Masvidal that throws Usman off, in my opinion. Given the short notice of this fight.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. You're getting me excited, and there are just so many fascinating angles to this, not the least of which is the fact that as I sit here at this host hotel in Las Vegas with all the athletes who are competing on Wednesday, July 15th, Paige Van Zandt and everybody else who is competing at UFC 251 is already in Abu Dhabi, right? And Kamaru Usman is still here with us, and I believe he's going to be on our charter tonight to go quarantine for 48 hours once he gets there. So fascinating to see how this fight week plays out. But we have a new main event, and it is a damn good one between Jorge Masvidal and Kamaru Usman. And I'd imagine Ray Longo has a thought or two on the new look UFC 251 pay-per-view. Let's get to the Ray Longo Minute.
It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute. Starring Ray Longo. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. If you're listening on iTunes, you got to go to YouTube right now.
What's the matter?
It's Super Mario from Mario Brothers.
Come on, what the hell is going on? We need ratings on this show.
Yeah.
We need ratings.
The mustache equals ratings. How good does that look? Have you ever had a mustache in your life?
No. This is the first one.
The COVID test.
Fucking great.
Only because you have one, I had to get one now.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it. Are you going to keep that on for the whole Ray Longo Minute today? That'd be great if you did.
I think we're going to try it, yeah. I think this is what I'm going to do. Every week I'm going to have a new mustache for you.
It looks so good.
I love it. It really does look great. So what do you think about my mustache, Ray? Do you like it?
I like it.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll take it with us to Fight Island. So, so how you doing, man? Jorge Masvidal in, Gilbert Burns out. What do you make of the new main event for UFC 251? We were just talking about it.
Man, I tell you, I love the fight. I hope Masvidal was training. That's it. You know what I mean? I think jumping in at the last minute against a guy like Usman obviously is dangerous, but Jorge's one of those guys. He's going to fight you on the street. It doesn't matter. So that's what I love about it. I think he's a relaxed guy, and if anybody could do it, he could do it. So I think it makes for a great fight. It'll probably bring more eyeballs to the fight now too. This mustache isn't distracting.
I am so caught off guard by the fake mustache that you're wearing. It's just so interesting, Ken-Flo, because
Kenny.
In the 1970s and 80s, when Kenny and I were growing up in Massachusetts, every dad had a mustache, right? And now in 2020, it's like a big deal when a guy wears a mustache. So
yeah, it looked like
I'm going to have this for eternity at this
I
point.
look like John Holmes minus the penis.
He's laughing and it's fucking falling off. I mean, I can't even do the show anymore, if I'm being honest.
Hold on. I got better. That's better.
So I don't want to kill the buzz necessarily, but I know you and I talked offline about Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov and just what a powerful individual he was in this MMA space in Dagestan. Certainly, it's highly publicized what role he had in Khabib's career, but this guy had an impact on hundreds of young men, and I think his loss as such is being felt really widely and deeply.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, not that I knew him, but I was around him a bunch of times. But really, when I thought about it, I really felt first off, condolences to Khabib. I think he's a great guy. I think, he speaks well. He speaks, shoots from the hip. He's not a bullshitter. He's not acting, inappropriately. He's always on the money, I think, with a lot of things. But his father had presence, man. I mean, like when that guy walked in a room, the two things I like, I think he had presence. And, man, he had all those young guys. They respected their elders. You could see they come from a good spot. And when that guy walked in, it was like John Gotti walking into a room. Something was going on, and I remember being in Russia and turning around, and there he was, and he had all those, the coaches and everything. There was just such respect for I want to say they just respect their elders. And the guy had presence, man. It was crazy. It was great to watch. I'm sure he's going to be sorely missed. Those guys are just very spiritual and everything. So, they'll deal with it and get by. But when that guy walked in the room, something was going on, and that's my memory of Khabib's dad, man. He seemed like a great guy. Not that I spoke with him at all, but definitely in the training rooms a couple of times. And in Russia, I remember eating at breakfast and just it was like something was going on. You know what I mean? Like Paul McCartney was walking in. So he had presence, man. He 100%. And I love the way the young people took care of him. They were almost like bodyguards. That's what it looked like to me. You know? So, man, I just send my, just my prayers out to Khabib. I hope everything's good, and I hope they get through it, and I hope he gets back on track with his life as quick as possible.
Yeah, I only met him once, but I think you hit on two themes that are really important. Just this overwhelming respect for the elder people in your life. And also just the presence, right? Like I was like starstruck around the guy, maybe because Khabib would speak so glowingly of him, but he was never able to corner him because of visa issues or whatever else. And then seeing him there at UFC 242, he's like a larger than life guy. So I just wanted to give you a chance to chime in on that. So, all right. So I want to talk to you about Petr Yan and Jose Aldo because it has relevance to your guy, Aljamain Sterling. Have you talked to Aljo? Does he think that Yan is a slam dunk here? What do you think about this bantamweight title fight? And if you're Team Sterling and Team Sarah Longo, who do you guys want to see win this thing?
No, we haven't really talked about it. I have seen Aljo, but we haven't talked about it.
Fix your mustache.
This thing off. We'll have to wait for next week and get another one on the right way.
Just grow it out. Just grow it out.
Grow it out. I'll tell you what, I'm surprised of the odds. They're really heavily favored Petr Yan. I think this is going to be a way closer fight than people think, but it's either going to be I mean, I don't know. Aljo looked pretty good in his last fight. Technically, he looked good. I think Maurice is a big, strong kid. And the fact that he weathered that storm, I think Aldo has a really good shot in this fight. I really do. I think he showed signs of that in the last fight. And I think, I don't know. I think that those odds are way off. I think this is a closer fight than the odds are making it.
Ken-Flo, I know you're going to make your prediction on this fight, so I don't want to steal too much thunder now. It's crazy to think it was almost 10 years ago that you fought Jose Aldo in October of 2011. May not be given a chance, at least by the odds on paper, but I think a lot of people consider him a live underdog here. I mean, what do you think about the King of Rio in this spot against Petr Yan without revealing who you're picking in the fight?
Yeah, no, listen, I think Aldo's got a great shot. They're similar fighters in the fact that they're very patient. They wait for their opening and they pounce on you. Both guys have that ability. Both have knockout power. I think if Aldo can do the same kind of job that he did cutting down to 135 pounds that he did in his last fight, I absolutely give him a great shot to win that fight. Petr Yan is a handful. There's no doubt about it. I do think that Aldo has some tools that Petroyan just hasn't seen before.
Without a doubt. I couldn't agree more. And I'll tell you, think about what you just said, John.
Right.
10 years ago, Kenny fought him like in his prime. No,
Right.
really. This is really
Right.
this is serious though. No, I'm not. I wasn't going that way with it, Kenny. I'm just saying that you fought the guy in his prime. Like 10 years is a long time, and he's been in this game before Kenny fought him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's what my point. Like you look at Mayweather. Go back and look at Mayweather's fights from 2003, 2004. He was a different animal. People want to fight him at 40 years old? Are you kidding? He was still good, but he's not the guy you were looking at 15 years ago.
Right.
I mean, Kenny, when you fought him, I'm just saying it's a compliment to Kenny is what I'm saying.
Oh, thank you.
He fought him at the height of when he was, unbelievable. You know what I mean? This is 10 years, and I still think the guy's got it, but it's not going to be the same. I'm saying the Jose Aldo that Kenny fought definitely wins this fight. He's not an underdog in this fight. There's no question about it. You know what I mean? So Kenny's hitting on it. If he can make the weight like he did the first time, because I thought he looked pretty sharp. His counters were good. His head movement was good. His speed looked good. I think he's got a shot in that fight, 100%. If that's what you call it, a live dog, then he's a live dog because if that weight cut goes good, he's going to be a handful for, like Kenny said, I don't think Peter Yan's fought anybody near that ability yet. You know what I mean? So I'm really intrigued by that fight.
Ken-Flo is up 2-1 after 3 on my scorecard against Jose Aldo, by the way, for the record. So, Ray, before you came on, we were talking about Usman Masvidal and the preparations on both sides. And Jorge Masvidal is being given a lot of credit from the fan base, and rightfully so. I'd like to see Kamaru Usman get some credit for taking the matchup, but a lot of people, Ken-Flo included, believe that the Masvidal matchup is more favorable for Kamaru Usman than the Gilbert Burns matchup would have been. It does eliminate the teammate angle, and all of a sudden there's a matchup here with real heat. I mean, do you see this stylistically as a significantly more palatable matchup for Kamaru Usman than Gilbert Burns would have been or not?
Yeah, I do see it as I love Masvidal. I never pick against him. I just think the takedowns, and this other guy's been training. Now he's been out with Gaethje, so he's getting pushed to the limit by that guy. I think that's going to be the difference. Jorge, I'm sure he negotiated a good price for this fight, else he would have definitely not have taken it. Right. So I don't like the last minute thing. I would have liked it more with if he had a 6-week camp, but anything could happen. He's got 5 rounds to do it. But I think the strong wrestling of Usman is going to be, that's where the difference is in this fight, where Burns had the jiu-jitsu to maybe have reverse him or, similar to what happened with like Meyer and Ben Askren, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think I agree with you. I think this fight is more favors Usman than the Gilbert Burns fight for that reason. I think the ground is what separates it. Right. And I mean, if you haven't been working your takedown defense and that, even the cardio that goes with that, that's a big deal. And I don't know we don't know where Masvidal's been. Maybe he's been in the gym. Maybe he's got everybody fooled. He knew that, but when you have a good training camp, and Usman's not a joke. I mean, he looks like he takes stuff very seriously, and he's with the right. He's always with a good team, but he's with he's very Trevor's very strategical. He's got good guys to push him down there, especially being Gaethje is one of them. So he's coming in prepared. I'm sure of that. And Jorge loves to fight. You know what I mean? He's like, again, that's not going to be a problem. He's not going to have no jitters. He's not going to have any of that. He's going in there to fight. I'm sure he's calm as a cucumber right now. But can he deal with the wrestling? The longer that's on its feet, the longer Jorge's got a shot to get him out of there. I mean, if they stand up, Jorge should have I'm going to say a noticeable advantage. It depends on how he can scramble back to his feet.
Yeah, can't wait to see it all play out. And then for you, we got August 8th, right? Chris Weidman fighting Omari Akhmedov. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How's Chris doing? And
I think Chris is looking good. Yeah, he'll be coming in later today. He's doing. Saw him over the weekend. Right now we're off to a very good start.
So you're home right now, or are you at the gym?
No, I'm at the gym actually. I came down to do this podcast at the gym because I had my mustaches down here.
Ah, that's right.
I go wherever the mustache goes.
That's
John.
right.
I don't know if you know that.
Do you have any N95 masks there at the gym? Do you have
Yes,
any
we
masks? Good.
I'm gonna. Hold on a second. You guys will be the first to see this. It's unbelievable. This is amazing. What I'm about to do. I sound like Trump. Amazing.
I mean, you honestly, that was like
amazing.
A spitting.
This is unbelievable. It's the best mask out there. How's that?
Yes.
Oh, come on, baby. I got to send you guys some of these.
This is the best Ray's ever looked. Actually,
that's what everybody says.
The
Kenny.
most handsome you've ever seen. I've ever seen you.
Oh, was that a compliment? 'Cause I'm not really sure.
It's both. I don't know. Those are awesome.
You know what's even worse?
Focus on those beautiful eyes of yours.
You know what's worse, John? I'm going to put this back in the bag, and somebody's going to buy it. Because I'm responsible. What can I say? I'm a responsible guy.
Well, hey, I just wish I had one of those to represent in Abu Dhabi.
You might get this one. I'm sending it. I'll send it to Sarah. Did you see him yet?
No.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my Lord. How we doing?
Well,
you know, because I really can't see. I need a mirror. I think John froze. John froze up on us. He froze up on us. Come on.
We are having a terrible day.
Oh my God! Come on, TJ. This is gold.
Oh, don't easy, Doc Brown. This has nothing to do with me.
TJ,
dye that hair white and get a new flux capacitor. All right.
Yeah, look, I look like Eugene Levy in Splash. Where is it?
This has really disintegrated with the mustache on the forehead.
I
don't know. What am I doing?
All right. So, all right. Last thing, I promise. Right.
I mean,
what?
I don't want to go.
We,
you can have a couple of things.
Well, what are we doing with the hair? I mean, do you even give it any thought anymore, or are we just letting it go?
No thought. I'm just going right down the shitter like the rest of my career. That's where it's going. It's actually leading the way of where my career is going after I put a mustache on my cheek.
You know, our listeners see this side of you, and they obviously see the tender side as well when we're talking about Abdulmanap or whatever. But Ken-Flo, I got to tell you, I got a phone call from Ray Longo on my birthday, saying all these nice things about my wife and my family. I'm like, who is this fucking guy? You know?
That's actually the real, and that fortunately, that's the real me. This is part of it.
So I went downstairs and told my wife all these wonderful things. And I was like, he's saying that I'm like one of the nicest guys he's ever met. And it's like, my family knows me to not necessarily be that guy because I have an identical twin who is just Mr. Congeniality, right? And who's much nicer consistently to the family than maybe I am. So when Chrissy heard that you said that I was like one of the nicest guys you've ever met, she's like, oh, maybe he should come over and see the other side of you, John.
But let me tell you something. That's any family, John. You know that.
No, it's true.
I could never let my wife go loose because she'd reveal everything. I'd be it would be I'd lose a lot of fans.
Ray's the man. Ray's the man either way.
Yeah. We love you, and we're going to let you go. And we might be doing a special Sunday show right after the pay-per-view this Sunday because I'm going to be in Abu Dhabi, and we're trying to get everybody on the same schedule. So there is a chance that we're going to recap UFC 251 on Sunday. So, all right. Well,
run away, Ray.
All right.
All right. Well, have a great day, buddy. We appreciate you. We love you, and we'll talk to you on Sunday or Monday. All right?
Hey, listen, goodbye from me and goodbye from my mustache. My mustache wants to say goodbye because my mustache to your mustache, John. John, seriously, get the sanitizer. Just you got to go down.
The COVID catcher.
You got to go. You got to give it the COVID scratch.
Yeah.
Down.
The catcher's mitt is getting on the chart.
I could always count on Ken-Flo. It doesn't even matter.
So
I could always count. The guy's the best. All right, guys, take it easy, man. And John, be safe. And watch over my little friend for me, please. Because that guy could be out of control. Please watch over my little buddy. All right, take it easy, guys.
I got you, bro. There it is. Raymond Peter Longo on social media at Ray Longo MMA. Support for the Anik and Florian podcast comes from the official electric razor of UFC, Manscaped. Have you ever had an awkward moment where you had to grapple with someone who had like a full bush coming out of their singlet? This is literally why I quit jiu-jitsu. Well, thankfully, Manscaped has everything you need to keep your package nice and tidy. Manscaped truly is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Their top-notch ball trimmer called the Lawnmower 3.0 will keep you clean without all those nicks and cuts. They've also partnered up with top-tier MMA athletes like Max Holloway and Francis Ngannou and many others who understand that hygiene matters and also know what it takes to be the best. And so does this revolutionary men's grooming company, Manscaped. They just redesigned this Lawnmower 3.0. The ceramic blade won't cut you. Proprietary advanced skin-safe technology. Accidents, for me, are now a thing of the past. And we have a deal for our great listeners and viewers who are men out there, because we don't want you using the same trimmer on your face that you're using on your balls. So to get you there and get 20% off with free shipping, the code is AF. Go to manscaped.com today. That is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code AF. Thank you, manscaped.com, for supporting mixed martial arts and its athletes worldwide. All right, you may have heard it's a pay-per-view week, UFC 251. Let's get to the main event challenge.
It's the main event challenge. Anik.
The time is most definitely now.
Florian.
I finish fights! I'm gonna do everything possible to win.
The main event challenge. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
All right, UFC 251 is 5 sleeps away. We are now joined by Ian Parker on social media at Ian Parker MMA. We will update the scores from UFC Fight Night Poirier versus Hooker. And Ian, getting these decisions to hit ends up being a big swing, right? Poirier by decision. That was the swing fight. And Team Anik takes the week 5-3. The overall lead for the Duck-led squad is now 72-65. It's UFC 251. Usman versus Masvidal. We got 7 selections today. And we begin with the featured prelim on ESPN. It comes your way in the light heavyweight division. The former title challenger, Volkan Oezdemir, a -170 favorite. He welcomes the highly touted knockout artist Yuri Prochazka to the UFC. He's +150, and he'll put his 10-fight winning streak on the line here in his UFC debut. Ian Parker, Oezdemir, Prochazka. Who do you like?
I'm so glad that you said that name first, because there was no chance I was going to get that right. You know what? Having a debut in the UFC and going against a guy in Oezdemir is such a tall task for anybody. How do you not go Oezdemir here, especially at minus, I think it was 180 last time I checked. I think Oezdemir has the opportunity here to use his ground game, not get into a brawl. I think his fight IQ is risen. We saw it in the Latifi fight. We saw it in the Alexander Rakic fight. I like Volkan here 100%. I think that line should be way higher. I know his opponent is a dangerous striker, but Oezdemir is fought the best of the best.
Yeah, Ken-Flo. So Oezdemir had that fight with Dominic Ray, a split decision in March of 2019, a fight obviously we've talked about. Many people thought he won, but it was the way that he responded to that disappointment that really impressed a lot of people. Ilir Latifi, he finishes, and then he outpoints Alexander Rakic, and now all of a sudden he's back in light heavyweight contention. Your thoughts on him here versus the newcomer from the Czech Republic, Prochazka?
Listen, I don't use these words too often, but Prochazka is a nasty prick. Let me just tell you, out of his last 10 fights, he has 9 finishes. This guy can strike, and I'm glad you brought up the Dominic Reyes fight, because I actually think on the feet he's a more dangerous version of Dominic Reyes. Now, I don't think he's got the grappling chops necessarily to get it done. In a lot of ways, I think he's very vulnerable there. Not that Oezdemir's this great submission artist, but positionally, I think Oezdemir, can probably ride out some positions and side control, or maybe mount and steal some rounds that way. But on the feet, as good as Oezdemir is, and as dangerous as he is on the feet, Prochazka is just way better. The way he puts together his combinations, he could fight going backwards really well. I need points. I like the 6'4" guy from the Czech Republic. I think he gets it done, and hopefully he gives me some big points. But don't be surprised if this guy ends up fighting for the belt at some point.
I'm telling you, Flo, I'm looking forward to sitting down with him and trying to figure out why it took him so long to get to the UFC, because he is all the rage, at least in terms of the people that I'm talking to. And certainly he has a stiff test to the UFC debut against the Volkan Oezdemir. All right, pay-per-view opener is going to be at flyweight, despite the fact that Amanda Hebos is a bona fide strawweight contender right now. She's -900 against the returning Paige Van Zandt, who comes back at +600 for what will be, I believe, the last fight on her UFC contract. So Van Zandt makes her UFC debut in 2014. Only 8 fights, though, in 6 years. A lot of injuries, arm surgeries. Last fight, though, was a win and a finish. Came against Rachel Ostovich. That was back in January 2019. Any value on PVZ at +600, or are you going chalky here with Amanda Hebos nearing -1,000 right now?
I'm going so fucking chalky here. And it's not that Paige doesn't have a chance. She's a very talented fighter, but strategically wise for your career, if she wants to be a mixed martial artist and continue to fight in the UFC, this is supposed to be like your, resurgence, and you're fighting the hottest prospect in the women's division in a very long time. Ribas is so good everywhere, and I haven't seen too many weaknesses. Paige hasn't fought, like you said, since Ostovich in January of 19. Before that, she lost to Jessica Rose Clark and losing to Michelle Waterson. I think this is a dangerous fight. I think the odds are a little wild here. I think it's because Paige probably hasn't fought in the injuries. But yeah, I mean, if there's no spread here, Amanda Ribas 100%. I think she gets it done here, and I think she's the next star.
Ken-Flo Ribas 3-0 in the UFC, beat Randa Marcos in Brasilia March 14th when all this shit was hitting the fan with COVID. Pahumpa is here in Las Vegas. He got COVID-19. He was unable to corner Luis Pena on June 27th. He is her chief corner. Hopefully he'll be able to make it to Abu Dhabi. But what do you think about Amanda Ribas here and moving forward, kid?
Listen, I think the UFC is kind of doing PVZ dirty here. This is a tough matchup, man. Tough matchup after tough matchup. And again, she's right now trying to renegotiate her next contract. This is not the one you want to have before you renegotiate that contract. I just don't see it going well for her. Paige Van Zandt is as tough as they come. She really has proven to be extremely tough and determined. But skill-wise, I think she's just outgunned in every aspect in this fight. Amanda Ribas is going to be a handful everywhere, and I see this really being her coming out party if it hasn't been shown already.
All right, next up, we got a rematch of former strawweight champions. Thug Rose Namajunas, -200. Jessica Andrade, +170. Flo, we'll have you lead this one here. So Thug Rose hasn't fought since getting slammed by Jessica Andrade to lose the belt. That was UFC 237, May of 2019. Only time Thug Rose has ever been knocked out. And then Andrade turned around quickly, perhaps too quickly, lost the belt in 42 seconds to Zhang Wei Li on the road about 3.5 months later. So Andrade was a slight favorite the first time around against Namajunas. Now she's +170, Kenny, for the rematch, despite a head-to-head win. What do you think about the second meeting coming up here this weekend?
Very interesting matchup. I think Namajunas really was picking Andrade apart in that fight. I hate to say this because it's mixed martial arts, but I think Namajunas lost that fight. Andrade didn't win that fight. That was a big mistake on the part of Namajunas. She had her first chance, being in that Kimura position where she almost got slammed on her head. You'd think, well, let me adjust things. I'm going to try to adjust things and not put myself in that situation again. She did end up getting slammed again, this time on her head, getting knocked out. Not a good situation. So for Namajunas, I think she is going to fight smarter. I think, how can you not learn from that mistake? I think Namajunas picks her apart from the outside. I don't think Andrade has an opportunity to really get in on her legs or really strike with her too much. I think she's powerful. I think she's good on the takedown, but I think Namajunas is still more dangerous than her on the ground. I think Namajunas gets this fight back. I think she wins, and I think she ends up fighting for the belt. I think Namajunas is going to look very good. I have her winning. I got to give a round, right? A round in a method, or no, I don't.
Technically, you don't have to.
Okay.
So.
I see her getting a finish in and around second or third round.
And I do agree with you that Namajunas appears destined for a fight with Zhang Wei Li, who really wants that Thug Rose scalp on her resume. Of course, though, Ian, she's got to get through Jessica Andrade, who already has 11 UFC wins to her credit, deserves a lot of respect for putting her belt on the line in China so soon after winning it. And if Andrade wanted to move up to flyweight, she'd be an immediate contender. But at 115 pounds, you got all these former champions. You got Tatiana Suarez. What do you think about the rematch this weekend, my man?
I mean, it's hard to really best what Kenny just said. I think
it's hard. It's really fucking hard.
Yeah. It's funny. I always want Flo to lead so I get a little bit of advantage. But then when he fucking leaves me no points to talk about, I just sit here and, just rebound what Kenny said. No, to Kenny's point, though, and really without beating around the bush, Rose beat Rose in that fight. I really don't see where Andrade – I don't know what she's going to do any different. She fights the way she fights. She's the juggernaut. She comes forward. She throws hard. She throws heavy. I think Rose's cardio will be better. And if she makes those adjustments, and it was funny, I said I was going to say third round rear naked choke for Rose. I do see her getting the finish.
Yeah.
If Rose doesn't get slammed on her head, she was dominating that fight everywhere. So I like Rose as well here.
All right, now we'll need rounds and methods the rest of the way. First of 3 title fights at UFC 251 will be for the vacant bantamweight crown. We talked about it a little bit with Ray Longo. Petr Yan minus 235. Jose Aldo plus 195. He can be had north of plus 200 in some spots. So Yan is the favorite. He's 6-0 in the UFC, and he's won 9 straight overall, 14-1 the pro record. And how about this? His first UFC title shot comes against the King of Rio, the future Hall of Famer Aldo. What a great opportunity for Yan to begin his championship era against one of the biggest names in the sport. How do you handicap this title fight, kid?
It's interesting. The only person that's really tested Yan was John Dodson when he dropped him in that fight. Outside of that, Jan's done a really good job imposing his will and dominating everyone else that he's fought. I think his striking is super crisp. He's got so much power. I think his fight IQ is through the roof. Put everything with Aldo to the side, him not beating Marlon Moraes. Everyone thinks he won. To be honest, I didn't see what he did in that fight that would put Yan in danger. Kenny and I spoke about this last time. What made Aldo so dangerous was those leg kicks. And I don't think he threw any against Marlon Moraes. And if he doesn't throw any here to slow down Yan, I think Yan being the younger guy, the faster guy, the stronger guy, I think Aldo's going to be in trouble here. And I think the weight cut, even though he says it's going well, how much damage can he take? How many of those Yan, if he lands clean, can he really take here? Again, Jan's beat Faber, which in my opinion shouldn't lead to a title shot, but I'll leave bias to the side of where I think Aljo should have got there. But I do like Yan in this fight. I think he wins. I hate to see him finish Aldo. That'd be such a miserable situation for Aldo fans and for his legacy. But I think Petr Yan gets this done with a second round TKO.
All right, Petr Yan, second round TKO is the pick to click for Ian Parker. Ken-Flo, you're one of the foremost experts in all of mixed martial arts, particularly so when it comes to your former opponent, Jose Aldo. Talk to me, man. What does the King of Rio have for this Russian boxer that certainly looks like a future UFC champion to me?
I think Petr Yan is a guy that has a lot of knockout power. He's very fast. He's very confident. And he's that guy. He's not afraid to get hurt, to get in there and knock out his opponent. So that makes him very dangerous for Aldo. But Aldo has a tremendous amount of experience. He does have a lot of miles on him, but I don't see Petr Yan as the kind of guy who has that same kind of high volume style that Max Holloway had. I don't see him putting together combination after combination, round after round, and that kind of pressure style like Holloway does. I think he pressures you moving forward, but he doesn't throw high amount of volume. And for that reason, I like Aldo in this fight. I think Aldo, I disagree with Ian that Petr is going to be stronger than Aldo. I think Aldo is a guy who was strong at 145 pounds, and having locked up with this guy, Aldo is definitely going to be the stronger guy in there against Petr Yan. Can Yan win that fight? Absolutely. He's got the power. He is very dangerous. I think he's going to test Aldo's chin, but I think Aldo's experience, his footwork, if he's able to stay emotionally centered in this fight, I like Aldo to win by decision.
Jose Aldo by decision. The duck looks like he wants to quack with some sort of rebuttal.
I am so happy that you chose Aldo. I think you're still thinking he's the same guy that you went to war with. Look, Yan is, you don't fuck with Russians when it comes to their strength, bro. Do you see what he does to people? Those combinations he throws have murder behind all of them.
I agree.
That's my only thing with Aldo is that if you don't chop out those legs of Yan, you're not stopping him. And I haven't seen anyone be able to do that. And that was what Aldo did so well and made him so dangerous. He would kick the shit. Listen, you have the experience, man. His legs are lethal. And when you can't stand in those, where's your power coming from your punches? Nowhere. So I know you need points. I was not seeing that coming, but fuck yeah, I'm so glad that you took Aldo in that fight. Love Yan.
I think Yan defensively isn't where he needs to be a champion in this sport just yet. I think he can get there, and maybe he's made those improvements in camp. But I do think he gets hit enough to where Aldo will find his mark. I agree. I would love to see Aldo throw way more kicks. But that's a guy who has been in there with a lot of great champions. You look at the guys who Aldo has lost to. they're no joke. And I think Aldo is so close. He could taste this belt now. I think he's going to be very motivated. The difference is I think Jan is going to be a little bit more determined. I think if things get really, really difficult out there, I do think Jan is probably the mentally tougher guy. But we'll see, man. I can't wait for this fight. I'm really intrigued by it.
And you guys did a great job breaking it down, but we do need to move on to the co-headliner for the UFC featherweight title. It is a rematch between Alexander Volkanovski, and Max Blessed Holloway. Holloway was minus 200 as a favorite for the first meeting. Now Volko is minus 240. Holloway comes back at plus 200. Ken-Flo, we will have you lead on this co-main event. Who leaves Yas Island, the undisputed UFC featherweight champion, and how do they get it done?
You know, this has always been the most difficult challenge for Holloway, is the guy who can land those leg kicks. Now, Holloway is as tough as they come. He always finds a way to continue to move forward and put together his combinations. But we really saw a Max Holloway that struggled with being able to move as well as he normally does. Volkanovski did a great job of utilizing those calf kicks, and once you attack that nerve, it's very difficult to step the way you want, to move laterally the way you want, to get things going. And I think in a lot of ways, being the taller, rangier fighter actually hurt Max in a lot of ways. Now, I know that Volkanovski actually has the longer reach, but because Volkanovski is the shorter fighter, I think it really confused Holloway in how he was trying to punch down and land shots. He just wasn't able to do it. And I also think that while Holloway is a high volume striker, he doesn't have the same kind of power on his feet that Volkanovski has. Now, Volkanovski can get in the pocket and trade with anyone, I think, in that division. He didn't really do that against Holloway. He got in, he got out. He utilized a lot of long-range weapons against Holloway. I think we're going to see a more determined Volkanovski. I think knowing what he knows about Holloway now after 25 minutes, I think he's going to try to land a little bit more shots with his boxing in the pocket. And I think he's also going to try to take down Holloway in the open mat a little bit more. Can Holloway make certain adjustments to make it an easier fight? Absolutely. And the route to victory for Holloway is to shut down those calf kicks. He cannot eat those, and he cannot eat those early. Otherwise, he will be a compromised fighter. I think Volkanovski also can make a lot of adjustments to make it an even easier win. If there is an easy win against someone like a Max Holloway, I do think Volkanovski gets the win. I think he gets it done by decision yet again. I think it's going to be a close fight. It's going to be a tactical fight. I'm really intrigued to watch this as a mixed martial artist, but I still think Volkanovski has some other tricks up his sleeve that he didn't quite use in that fight. I like Volko for the win.
You know how nice it is for me to just sit here high as a billy goat in Vegas and listen to you guys break down these fights, and all I got to do is tee up. Ian, it is going to be interesting for us to sit down with Max Holloway in Abu Dhabi to get some more specifics on his training camp and the extent to which it was compromised. You guys are still laughing, but it seems like Holloway really had some hurdles with this quarantine and the restrictions. But we're sitting here on Monday. He's plus 200 against Alexander Volkanovski. What do you think, Ian Parker? Who wins the co-main here?
I'm trying to catch my breath here with that comment, because I swear I'm watching, both your reactions to each other and John just like, and I wasn't sure if the screen was frozen or if he was just enjoying the breeze.
Mesmerized.
It was so good. You just, I hope if you're like this during the fights, I swear to God, I'm going to lose it. That was amazing.
Bro, can you imagine me walking into Sidyod Tong in 2008, meeting Kenny Florian for the first time? I was fucking shaking. I mean, Jesus. All right. As you were, Ian, as you were.
Well, now we know how you're so super relaxed. Kenny's sitting back and you're stoned as a fucking. I know. Amazing. Just sit back. I'll take you guys to the promised land real quick here. So, listen, I think the way Kenny broke it down again with Volkanovski is spot on. I'm a huge Max Holloway fan. I will tell you, I'm a little concerned with some of the things he's been saying. I don't necessarily buy into, like, when Max really take his rematch opportunity with very little training, not seeing his coaches, doing it through Zoom, I don't necessarily buy into that. But the fact that he's even saying that concerns me. Like, since when has Max Holloway needed to play mind games with anybody to kind of throw them off? And Eugene Behrman is too smart. City Kickboxing is too good of a team overall. And Volkanovski is too focused of a fighter. Outside of fighting, he does TikTok videos with his kids, so that he's all about that life. Right. At first, I was like, Max Holloway plus 200 is amazing. But right now, how do I not take Alexander Volkanovski with the team he has with the focus? I was all about try to bury Kenny here with that plus 200 dog. But at the moment, until you do your interview with him, John, and I see how Max is during the week, I'm going to go with Volkanovski also for the decision. I think Max starts off too slow with everybody. Round 1 and round 2, if he doesn't push forward and he's sitting on his bike too much and takes those calf kicks, I don't think he comes back in rounds 3, 4, or 5 this time, because I don't think Eugene Behrman will let Volkanovski do it. So Alexander the Great, unanimous decision is where I'm at right now as well.
All right, so you like more of the same, Volkanovski on points over Max Holloway. All right, main event. Woo! For the undisputed UFC welterweight title, Kamaru Usman about minus 275, Jorge Gamebred Masvidal plus 215. All right, so Kamaru Usman is 1 win shy of tying George St. Pierre's record for consecutive welterweight wins. If you know Kamaru, you know how much that means to him. He's 11-0 in the UFC, but he's only defended this belt 1 time. He was preparing to face his teammate Gilbert Burns. Instead, it will be the legend Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Ian Parker, who wins the main event at UFC 251?
There's so many questions I have here. Has Masvidal been training for a 5-round fight? That's the biggest question. Has he been training? Probably. I saw on Instagram he was at Chima in Fort Lauderdale, which, John, if you've ever been there, you get the meat sweats after 7 minutes of eating that steak. And you don't go there to cut weight. You go there to cut fat and accept the fact that you're walking out of there knowing you ate fillets wrapped in bacon. And that's true. It really is. My concern here is Masvidal's biggest weakness always has been once he's been put on his back, he's had trouble getting up. And Usman is a huge guy at this division. Masvidal, in my opinion, is still a 55er who's had tremendous success just at 170. I think Usman's size, I think his power, and his cardio. He's been training for the 5-round fight. As much as I'd love to see Masvidal win, the story, the marketing, the insanity that will happen if Street Jesus pulls this off, I think this is going to be a Kamaru Usman decision. I just see it happening that way. I don't think he's going to fuck around on the feet at all. If he does, Masvidal can knock him out. But, man, I wish that this wasn't a short notice fight for all the reasons why I'm saying I'm a little concerned. And he's got 20 pounds to cut in 6 days, which we've seen before. These guys are pros. Masvidal will be able to do it. Yeah. I got here by decision for all those reasons, though.
And at least for Gamebred, the scale does not have to read 155. Last time Jorge Masvidal fought for an undisputed title, it was the Strikeforce Lightweight Championship, Kenny, against Gilbert Melendez, December 17th, 2011. And there are just a lot of people out there that would love to see a guy like this, fighter's fighter, who has spent a lifetime in the game, rewarded by becoming an undisputed UFC champion. The question is, what does he have for Kamaru Usman on Saturday night?
Listen, I think he has fearlessness on his side. I think he certainly has knockout power. He has an insane amount of experience. He's a slick fighter who can fight going forwards, backwards, laterally. He's got a lot of nice tools to try to get back to his feet. He's got a couple submissions up his sleeves in the form of front chokes, which I think could pose some problems for Kamaru Usman. The way that he shifts his stances, he cuts the distance very quickly, and that throws a lot of people off, as he did against Darren Till. He could fight lefty. He could fight righty. All those things that he can do, I still don't think it's going to be enough. Can he knock him out? Absolutely. And if he does it, he's probably going to do it early. I see this fight going one of two ways. He knocks out Usman early, or Usman just basically grinds him down till the very end of that 5th round and wins by decision. I think that for him taking this fight on short notice and all the things that he needs to deal with, from cutting around 20 pounds to, that long ass flight to Abu Dhabi. And I've done it, and it is not fun. And I've done it sick, and it was brutal. That's kind of what it's going to be like, cutting weight on a plane for that long, being cooped up, and then being cooped up in a hotel room for 48 hours. And you have to cut weight and get focused for a huge fight, a championship. This is a lot to deal with, man. Now,
yeah, man.
Listen, you got the right guy. Masvidal's pretty much seen it and done it, but I don't know. I mean, you look at all those things that he's got to deal with, and the fact that stylistically, that is the worst matchup, and one of the biggest dudes in the welterweight division who has had the luxury of having a full camp. For me, it's just too many strikes against Masvidal. I would love to see Masvidal pull it off, and he can, but I just don't see it happening. I like Kamaru Usman by decision as well. The guy's an absolute savage. He's Mr. Consistency, and he better not get overconfident, though. He better not go out there thinking that he can just strike with someone like Masvidal just because he did against someone like Colby Covington. Yeah. The route to victory for Usman is something he has done many times throughout his career. Utilize your strikes to get to the clinch, get him up over against the cage where he can't utilize a lot of, speed, and let him carry your weight, shoulder your weight, get him down to the ground, and grind him down.
Ian, you got something, my man? You're just grinning ear to ear.
No,
You're just enjoying the
Florian,
content.
I was going to say Kenny Florian, ladies and gentlemen, bringing the fucking heat for Fight Island this week. You know when Kenny's ready for this, he's up in the camera. He's got his hand out like he was reaching for the cage. It's like he was coaching Usman. He's like, Kamaru, get him up against the fucking cage. No, I think – listen, this is one of those fights where if I get to the last leg in the parlay and Usman is my last guy, I'm going to hedge with Masvidal and say, let's fucking hit that underdog. Right. Let's go. It's just, it's an exciting fight. I kind of wish this would have been one of those so that Masvidal took a full camp. Right. Give you a way different breakdown. It's just, I hate to sound stupid going, but it's really true. I think Masvidal has to throw that flying knee or do something crazy in the first round because Usman will steal rounds with his wrestling and his size against the cage, without a doubt. Kenny, you hit it on the head, pal.
All right, Ian, quick pick on the way out. Intriguing matchup here. Muslim Salikov, the king of Kung Fu, -120, taking on Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos, who is the even money underdog. Salikov slightly favored, trying to extend his UFC winning streak to 4. Easy dos Santos has been ranked in the past. He's won 8 of his last 9. Just need a winner here. Salikov or Easy dos Santos?
Easy dos Santos.
Ken-Flo, what do you think?
Wow. Yeah, I think it's a tough fight, but I'm going to go with Salikov.
All right. I like that you guys are split there. All right. We got to get on out of here. Sorry for the technical issues today. Hopefully my man TJ and Cody Merrow can clean it up. Thank you to our guests, Ray Longo, Ian Parker, AnikFlorianPodcast.com if you want merchandise, MerakiBJJ.com if you want to check out Ken-Flo's Jiu-Jitsu School. That is live and open. It has been for the past 4 weeks, I think. Entering week 4, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Give or take, week 3. Yeah. All right. If you want to hit the voicemail line, 857-301-8994, and we will play some of your voicemails after UFC 251 on the program next week. And we'll be back with you probably Sunday, July 12th, the day after UFC 251. With that, for Ian and Ken-Flo, TJ, Cody, and everybody else, John Anik saying so long for now. Appreciate everybody watching and listening and ordering the fucking merch. We'll talk to you next Monday. Yo, later.